it's going to be the same topic, and this topic is the bike lane. First up is Dr. Jody Rubanis.
Thank you and congratulations. And I'm Jody Rubanis at 12301 Kensington. And the purpose of my comments is to make two requests for actions from the RCSD. Before I get to my first request, I want to share an opinion and findings from some studies on the challenges to bringing about safe routes to school for children. I'll share with you too is it was my two children that were counted on that traffic safety analysis. I also want to mention too that the study of statistics is making inferences from small samples, although a sample size of 9 is not large enough to infer to a school population of 2,000. But certainly of those respondents, 40% did say that they were riding to school. The issue about keeping the parking restrictions of the bike lane or the RHA proposal to remove the parking restrictions comes down to two sides: the convenience for some residents or the safety for children. The convenience for the 198 residents who live along Hedwig and Foster have parking restrictions in front of their house 2 hours a day on school days. My husband tells me that when he went to school in the late 70s that those restrictions were in place then too. Safety of the children who use the bike lanes to get to and from school, and the well-being of children who would use it if so many people did not park in the bike lane. That's my opinion. On the studies, a national study found that the reason that 38% of parents drove their children to school was because they did not think it was safe for their children to bike or walk. Another study said that 80% of all school commuter trips are between the distance of 1/4 and 1/2 miles. So think of how we could lessen traffic if more children biked or walked. And here's the real study that I want you to ponder, is that researchers have found that even if tickets are issued just twice a year for bike lane parking infractions, that parking violations are likely to be reduced as much as 75%. And you see how good our residents are on street sweeping day. I know a major priority of the RCSD is to make our community safe for all community members, including our children, even if it is only 150 who are biking to school. My first request for action to the RCSD is that if we keep the parking restrictions on the bike lane, and we should be doing all we can do to foster the safe routes to schools for our most vulnerable members of our society, our children, that those parking restrictions be better enforced and the RCSD do what is in its power to make it so. And I'll also mention that the PTA stands on this action too in a 2008 resolution. I ask for a minute extra in time to talk about my second request. At this meeting last month, I shared with you the results of a survey that was conducted on Rossmoor residents and their attitudes towards the parking restrictions in the bike lane. There were 170 respondents, and 162 of those were in favor of keeping the bike lane as it is with the parking restrictions. Only 11 people who responded wanted it removed. It should be mentioned that the survey was created and distributed in response to a 5 days notice to a public meeting that the RHA was having on October 20th. And I think that that meeting was at the request of the traffic committee. At the meeting, about 200 people showed up. The great majority who are allowed to voice their opinion stated that they wanted to keep the bike lane as it is with the parking restrictions. And just because there were so many, I think that the RHA president needed to limit the time to 30 minutes. I mention this because if you look over the survey results that I distributed to you last time through Mr. Ruth, and noticed how outraged community members were on the actions of the RHA and how the RHA has been going about its efforts to remove the parking restrictions. Through my capacity as a PTA member, a couple of days before the May 15th, 2015 Orange County Supervisor's Office Traffic Committee meeting, I was shocked to learn that a member of the RHA board, and I'm not going to mention the name, represented himself on behalf of the RHA and a member of the traffic committee, was putting forward a proposal to remove Class 2 bikeway in Rossmore. I was also an RHA member at that time and carefully reviewed all the RHA public notices, and none mentioned anything about this proposal to remove the parking restrictions on the bike lane, let alone it being discussed by the Orange County Supervisor's Office for action. With 2 days' notice, I attended the May 15th meeting for the Orange County Traffic Committee, and I was the PTA president who's mentioned in the minutes. I also want to state that the minutes from that meeting have 2 recommendations, and I'd like to read the second recommendation. Conduct a more comprehensive study with collaboration with the Rossmore Homeowners Association and the Los Alamitos Unified School District. Note that the RCSD is not mentioned here, and it is board members of the RCSD who are voted into public office through the Orange County Register of Voters, not the board members of the Rossmore Homeowners Association. Adding to my concern the RHA's roles, it is my understanding that a member of the RHA fairly recently contacted Orange County Supervisor Michelle Steele's office to inform them that the RHA board had voted unanimously to remove the parking restriction signs. Here's my concern that I want to express to the RCSD is that the Rossmore Homeowners Association does not have the authority to represent Rossmore in an official capacity on such matters. Unlike their name, they are not a homeowners association in the true sense. And with their governance structure, election process, and voluntary membership, their authority to claim representation of the community is more on par of that with a garden club. And I mean that very respectfully. I started a garden club in my last community, and we did a lot of wonderful things that the RHA is doing too. But the meat of the matter is that the RCSD is the only official governing body that represents these interests of the Rossmore community. These actions that have been recently taken by the RHA impinge on the role and some of the responsibilities of the RCSD. My second request is that the RCSD serve a statement of censure on the Rossmore Homeowners Association board for its lack of transparency to the community it claims to represent, and its lack of integrity for not seeking ratification from the RCSD before it acted on behalf of the community in its efforts to remove the parking restrictions on the bike lane through Michelle Steele's office. Thank you for the extra time.